Tēnā koutou rā e Whakarongo mai nei ki tēnei o ngā hōtaka o Koniahi Kōrero o tira ki koutou rā e mātakitaki mai nei. Ki runga i a pukamata i tēnei pāpā o mataora. Ko Te Aorangi tēnei e me I ka atu ki koutou katoa. Ana ki koutou rā e mātaki mai nei. Kei te kite kē koutou, ko wai kei taku taa, ko Tāne Manu. He oi anō, ka tuku te rākau ki aia. Ki te wakamo'o atu ki koutou katoa. Ko wai ia, no hea, aua āhuatanga katoa nā reira e tāne, kei a koe te wā.
Tuatahi ka tuku mihi kia koe. I te tuahine mo tō tono mai kia hau ki te kōrero kia koutou katoa. Ai, ko Tāne Manukonga ingoa I te taha o tōku pāpā no Ngāti Porou, te whānau rākoero me te whānau arua taupare. Engari I te taha o tōku māma, ko Jen Manu tērā, kei konei au, ki tōna kāinga mō tēnei wā. Engari, ai, ko te māma, o taku māma, ko Irene Lavinia Minhinek. Tōna pāpā ko Wiremu Minhinek no Aotearoa pā. Ngā arua ine rangi. Ai, tōna koro ko George Manukonga no Puniho, ngā maanga. Engari, ko te paina tērā ingoa ki runga I te cafe ki Moturoa ne, ko tērā taku wharaunga Landon. Nā ko tōna pāpā ko Dick Manukonga, I takoto mai nei kei Okato. Engari, ai, tōna hoa rangatira, ko Lucy tira, ko Ruhia Ranapiri no Ngāti Mutunga, ko tērā taku tino kui. Ai, engari, e noho ana mātou whānau, ko Tara Lee, ko taku pōtiki a Māla, kei te wāhi o waha pakapaka, o Nairo. E nai nei tonu, e noho ana mātou ki taku māra, ai, ki taku mahi, e rotu e te taiao, ki te marae o Korotua, ki Uakura pā, ki Puniho hoki. Nō reira, ako ai tērā, tēnā koutou katoa.
Tēnā koe. Oh, so before we started this interview today, e te whānau, we talked about our talking points that we're gonna get into. However, I've got more talking points now after I've just listened to your pepeha. So, kei te mihi au ki tō taha no Ngāti Porou, he hononga tērā, he hononga ki Wainganui tāua, he oi anō, e hara I te mea, he hononga toto nei, no te whānau rua taupare etahi o kunei whanaunga hoki. So when and one of my first cousin's name is Rua Taupare, actually. Oh, wow. So whenever I hear that name from the coast, I know, okay, that's definitely a hononga there. And another one of my friends, they hail from the coast too, but her parents live in Hawera, and got talking to her actually, and she's named her child Rua Taupare as well. So, wow, there you go.
Yeah.
Nā reira. Yeah, e te whānau, koutou e Whakarongo mai nei. This is the importance of taki pepeha, I guess. It's actually about connections and just, those sorts of things. This is going to be awesome. Nā reira, kei te mihi au ki tō wakapapa e Tāne, and of course grew up here in Whakarongo. There are plenty of Manukongas around here too. And obviously, hail from Ngāroa Hine, and I always love that too. And your other wakapapa around the maunga also, nā reira kei te mihi ki koe oti rā ki tō whānau ki Tara Lee, me o tamariki hoki. Wonderful to have you here with us today, Tāne. Thank you for agreeing to come on and for finding the time too, because you know, I don't know, lockdown seems to be a busy time for everybody.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've been watching what you're doing out there in the community. And of course, the first time we met was through Kai Oranga, the Kai Oranga program through Te Warango Awa Nui Arangi. I've got that right, haven't I? Yes, I have got that right. And gutted to see that that's not going, that it's finished. Really gutted to see that, because it was awesome. It was awesome for our community to get us together and start really thinking about food sovereignty. So how did you get into Kai Oranga?
It's like I grew up in New Plymouth. I grew up on Paritutu, Onoku Taipari, and I remember my grandfather was always a grower, and I remember him dropping off food, and actually, you know, back in the 80s and early 90s, all of my koro and his brothers used to always drop off seafood all the time. My Uncle Dick would, you know, go as far as Northland sometimes to get some tōrero and come back and drop that stuff off. You know, whānau would go as far as the South Island to get muttonbird and bring that home and drop that off at mum's. Lucky to have a mum like mine. That all the whānau would drop all their kai off. But, you know, with all that kai come all their kids too. So mum used to have to look after all their kids. And I love that. I love that about growing up with mum over in Spotswood. And yeah, so my schools were Moturua Primary, Devon Intermediate and Spotswood College. And you know, meeting my father, my Ngāti Porou links later in life, he certainly taught me a lot too about kai. He used to order all of his food organically. He used to soak his oats and nuts and porridge overnight in milk or fruit juice in the fridge. And when he'd take us shopping to, like, we go to Gisborne for a holiday, and he'd take us shopping, and he used to hate taking us shopping because he hated shopping at the supermarket, and he actually called it poisonous food. And of course, you know, I grew up with that, and I grew up with a grandfather who was a gardener as well. And then when I sort of returned back to New Zealand after living in Australia for 10 years, we moved home to have our potiki, our youngest boy. And from there, I think the government brought out working for families. And then paid parental leave came into effect. And so what my wife and I decided to do was actually spend that paid parental putia on a mara. So we had 700 odd metres squared in Brooklands, and instead of taking an hour and a half to mow my lawns, we turned half of it into a fruit forest. And we started gardening the same time our son was born, I think, and he'd crawl around the mara and actually take bites out of the cauliflower while it was still growing. And he's actually probably prospered the most out of all of us from having this relationship with us in the mara. And then we met my wife and I met this amazing lady you are well known as well, via Painamu Skelton. And it rekindled another relationship for me with Matua Shane Cassidy as well, her husband. And so me and Matua Shane go back a long time to, of course, Western Suburbs Rugby League. But of course, re-establishing a hono to Waha Pakapaka, the marae there through Kai Oranga was a massive turning point for me. I've started looking deeper into my Ngāti Mutunga roots, even though I've always known they were there. And yeah, I speak to whānau a lot about, for instance, my great-grandfather, Dick Manukonga. He had a piece of land out there, more commonly known as the Kumara Patch, out the coast on Hawani Road was our homestead. And there's kōrero there from my great-grandfather. And I've spoken to all my aunties and uncles at family reunions where Kōrero had a massive cornfield, potato field. And, you know, back then in the 60s, there was no sort of phones to ring everyone. Come harvest, whānau would just show up, eh?
Yeah.
They'd just show up somehow on a Māori clock somehow. And yeah, and since Kai Oranga, it's actually helped me rekindle all those connections our whānau had. And then of course around the same time, you know, Kai Oranga makes you look deeper to not just the food that you're growing, but also the land that you're growing the food on, and it actually encompasses a lot of our tupuna knowledge and our tupuna systems. And so at the same time, you're not just rekindling these knowledge systems, you're reconnecting to the same mahi our tupuna did. And you know, when I go back to talking about my dad calling supermarket food poison, and I also have this fond memory one time of my granddad showing up at my house. He brought a pumpkin one time, and I remember him showing up, cutting the pumpkin open and taking the seeds with him and leaving the pumpkin. And I don't know why I remember that, but through Kai Oranga, this māramatanga has enabled me to sort of honour what our whānau have left us, honour what our tupuna have left us, and then of course I guess engage in what we have now. And one of those beautiful things that Kai Oranga allowed us to do as well was actually reconnect with our marae. Through our beautiful relationship with Whai Painamu and Matua Shane and Te Whare Wānanga o Awanui Arangi, we were given an opportunity to take Kai Oranga to Okorotua Marae, Oakura Papakainga. And I remember showing up there one day, and this was 2016, maybe 2017. And I showed up, me and my wife showed up on the same day as Toby Chandler from Restore Taranaki. And so we were two, I guess, external stakeholders that wanted to start utilising the marae for community initiatives. Toby obviously was trapping, and the pa's still got those traps in place today. And we were given an opportunity to uplift our tupuna mara. And of course, you know, I walked into the marae hui and I says, you know, we want a mara. And then the whānau's like, yeah, that's a great idea. And you know, I remember the old people saying, you know, where do you want it to go? And we'd never got that far. We just wanted to ensure that, you know, we had the support from the old people first. Yep. And then I remember turning around and just going to my uncle, oh, how about there? And he's just said to me, he goes, why don't you go back where the old people went? And so the mara that we have today at Oakura, we found on Google Earth. And so once we were told about it, we went and did a bit of research, and Google Earth actually exposed the old mara. And so that actually identified about a 28 by 30 square metre section out on the Papakainga. And once Kai Oranga started, our tauira were enrolled and they came to the mara, and we went through a process of doing the initial karakia just to, you know, bless our journey, bless the land, and bless this kaupapa that was about to be reborn. And we were super honoured and super privileged to have the support of our kaumātua. And I remember the day I remember everybody's faces. Some of the whānau that were firstly enrolled were whānau that whakapapa, and whānau that lived close by but don't have whakapapa. And then there were whānau that were actually from another country. And some of those, some of those tauira, I just remember coming together in that space for that kaupapa, was something more enlightening than I could ever fathom could happen. And I still have those conversations with those tauira about that first karakia and that first day, the first kumara that we sowed, the first crop, and we've been really lucky to have a lot of ongoing support too from other stakeholders. We met along the way. We've met Bunnings, Uncle Bunnings, and Uncle Bunnings is pitched in quite a bit. We have a 120-metre circumference fence that goes around the marda now, 30 metres each way, and they paid for it all with all the materials. Such a beautiful day too to get our YMCA youth group and our Te Pipinga Kakano rangatahi there that day to actually help us with that fence. And of course, from that day, we've had 3 seasons. We had 2 really good seasons with Kai Oranga. Unfortunately, last season was interrupted with COVID.
Yes.
We've had some amazing support from Te Whenua Tōmuri Trust.
Yep.
Which, from memory, I think might be where I first touched base with you at Whakarongo Marae.
At Whakarongo, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, And so Te Whenua Tōmuri Trust, taiao and whānau have supported our aspirations to continue monitoring Oakura Matapu, our awa, that runs beside Oakura. They also gave us support around a worm farm, compost heap. We got a greenhouse from them too, so really just wanted a big mihi to them.
Yes.
Also to whai Donna, to Kura Fraser, and to all the te whare wānanga o Awanui Arangi whānau that have helped us over the years. We still have all our tools from Kai Oranga. We have our container there as well that's helping us store our tools. And one of the reasons why we wanted to uplift this mara at Oakura, not only were we been inspired by Whai Pounamu and the kaupapa itself, the Hua Parakore framework, we wanted to continue the mahi, the succession that I guess Whai Pounamu and Matua Shane have enabled us. And so once we had that idea of coming back to the marae and the family said yes, and we built the fence and went through all of this stuff, we had this obligation to talk to our students and say, right, dream up your dream list of what this mara would look like in 10 years' time. And so one of our reasons for doing this was not to only, one of the hardest things for iwi Māori is to return our whānau to the marae. And, so when we engage in that task, when our whānau come back to the marae, what's there for them? And so the mara was not just a place for them to come and return, but it was actually a vehicle. We wanted our mara to be a vehicle to drive that reinstalling of our tikanga. We wanted to provide that space where whānau could come and learn to practice our reo, practice our kawa, practice our waiata, our karakia, outside of the marae.
Yes.
Outside of the marae, where you're not dealing with, stringent tikanga and, the realm of tūmataonga. Let's work over this side in Rongo's realm, in Haumea Tikitiki's realm. And, share what that might look like, share that vehicle, share that enlightenment with our whānau. And for us, that journey's actually been, I guess, the thing that's actually kept us on track is building capacity for whānau who want to return home to marae. Not only do you get your hands dirty, not only do you get to take some kai home, but we were finding that we were enabling whānau to return to learn about water, to learn about kakano, to learn about seed, and to learn about the one, the actual soil, not just the whenua, but actually learn about soil. And through that huapare kore framework, do you remember the 6 principles, Fire?
Oh, can you not do this to me right now?
And so one of those principles is Maori. And so we wanted to ensure, we always want to ensure that the Maori, that the life force of our people, the life force of our land, our awa is enriched and enhanced. And they were beautiful conversations to engage with tauiwi, to engage with whānau, and to engage with our kaumātua as well. I remember one of the kai we put on one night, there was no meat. And one of our kaumātua was like, "Hey, what's going on here? There's no meat." And he meant that in a great way, because he didn't actually realise, I don't think, that there was no meat. And so part of that learning as well, part of the kai resilience type conversation as well. Every week we'd have a kai tahi. You bring a kai. At the start of the year, our whānau were bringing, packeted biscuits and stopping and getting that chicken at Pack and Save on the way, and bringing all these plastic bags of buns and stuff like that. And then at the end of the year, we had whānau out catching the kawai, getting the mussels, and actually bringing their preserved oranges, bringing their smoked, or their traditional meals. We had some whānau from Middle East. We had whānau who were European, and they were sharing their customs and their tikanga around their kai with us too. So these conversations were just a taster, a starter of what bringing whānau back to our marae could look like for us as iwi Māori. And not only that, but we get to share. One thing I really enjoyed was actually sharing who our Ngāti Tairi people are. And through those wānanga that we ran, and the reinserting of our tikanga, and the relearning our kupu, our reo, just enables people, tangata, to feel a part of what a better future might look like when we're talking about our kai. And for me personally, I'd love to see Kai Oranga come back again.
Yes.
And to be honest, what I like to share with all our graduates is that you are Kai Oranga, and that that tūpuna mahi still sits with us graduates, And we still have a responsibility as graduates, I guess, to continue the mahi. Such a hard framework to go away from for me. I don't necessarily use that particular framework for growing food anymore. I look at the Hua Parakore framework as a decision-making tool to help me make decisions. It doesn't have to be about kai, you know.
Yeah. It's at the end of the day, it's a lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
I think everything within Māoridom that we're trying to reinvigorate or uplift, like you're saying, especially that are coming through the wānanga, it's about us reconnecting, which means it's going to be bigger than just a model of practice in a sense, and a good, I mean, from an academic point of view, which I'm not, but I hang around with many of them, the view is that a good model of practice will help you to do things outside of what the model of practice was invented for. You know, we see it with Te Whare Tapawha, which was actually invented for mental health, but we've been able to take that model and adapt it to many different aspects within a person's lifestyle. So the Kai Oranga, the Hua Parakore model that you talk about, it is, you can use that because it's Māori, basically.
Hard.
So if we're all just trying to be Māori, which is easier for some of us than others, it's a good starting point. And I think that many of us who did the Kai Oranga tohu, or I don't even, we didn't actually, our kura whānau didn't get into it for the tohu. So that was one thing that we got at the end, which was like, oh, cool, you know, we got a tohu, we got a travel mug too. But what it actually did for Ngā Ruahine, I guess, as a whole, was it was on the back of other kaupapa that we'd all been a part of. So it was just a continuation of those kaupapa, and it's strengthened the relationships between those of us who went on to it. And of course, others are far more active than some of us. But I interviewed Whaia Kushla Close, who was a part of Kai Oranga too, and you know, she's taken it. She already had it, but she took it to another level now. You know, she's totally entrenched in maramataka and stuff like that. But what you're saying, what it did was it created opportunity for conversation and connection. And so some of the cousins who we, you know, I would not have known maybe that, you know, they're actually our tohunga maramataka within our iwi, and especially when it comes to kohi kai. So when you're talking to them about what are the tohu that indicates to you where we are within the season, no sweat for them, just boom, 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 boom. Oh, Dad used to do this at this time, da-da-da-da-da. But you don't know that as maramataka, it's just the way that you are. You know, it's intrinsically within you. Your whānau, just like you're talking about how, you know, everyone used to bring kai. And we'll get onto that because it is still common that people koha kai. We've got friends who, but whenever they go to the taiao, you always, you know, they'll drop something off. And same with my husband, if he goes out hunting, then someone's going to get whatever. Is it common though? Like it is common with some people, but do you see that? You would probably be more in an environment where it would be more of a not a bargaining tool, but you know, something that's used as a trade of some sort. Do you see that?
Yeah, I do. One of the things I like to use as bartering, rather than actually use the kai, some of the things that are more precious to me is actually some of the kakano that people have given me. And, you know, like this year I'll be cracking open a hui, which I've been sort of keeping for a couple of years on the sly and trying to preserve this kakano that someone's actually given me. And I want to preserve that and hold on to that because I know that it's actually come from his family line. And so for me, it's like sometimes a couple of those seeds will get you a big sack of spuds. Or I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like the seed saving side of Kai Oranga for me is more valuable, and the story I have about that is actually, I remember my wife, actually it might have been Whaiapōnam, who gave us a whole bunch of seedlings one time. She says, look after these, and she might have been going overseas during Kai Oranga or sometime. And I remember all of those seeds, like probably about 300 seedlings, it all blew over and got destroyed. Now, we would not have eaten for 6 months had we been a tribe. So, you know, in terms of a sack of spuds versus 100 seeds, sometimes we, you know, we kind of value our kai, but we might not value our kakano just as much. And for me, that's probably one of the things my wife's actually taught me big time is, because I've had to sort of grab that hui and then put it on the shelf and hide it myself, and had to kind of take ownership of that mahi myself. Tara's got a lot of mahi on, and she's got 1 billion seeds, and she's got actually a few things that a lot of people have given her as well that would be a bartering tool, I guess, for her. And you know, some of those taonga that have been given to us, we feel people have given to us for a reason, that they want those taonga with us, and we know that from our working relationship with them. But for us, finding other people that we can entrust and empower and enable with our taonga, with our seeds, has been another part of Kai Oranga that's really dug deep on me. The effect that you can have on people, what you can teach people about seeds, what you can teach them about the soil, what you can teach them about the environment. You know, wind direction versus rainfall versus you know, heat and temperature. Some of the littlest things you can learn are the biggest things you can share with other people. And I think with Kai Oranga, we entered the Kai Oranga space with what we thought was a really good growing mindset. And then we took the framework and actually it empowered all of our schools across the board. And one of them that I picked up was actually kakano. And I guess when it comes to whānau wanting to get into the growing space, sometimes that kakano space, whānau are left not knowing a lot of mahi to sort of, you know, because that's the most vulnerable stage of your seeds, is to, you know, get them cracking, pop them on, and then get them in the ground sort of thing, or whatever that might look like. For some people, they're more prone to do the $5 Bunnings cauliflower, you know, and then fingers crossed they might grow into a cauliflower. So some of those lessons for me are the other big lessons too, to share with whānau. And a lot of the other questions that whānau have is like, oh, what do I grow? You know, what do I grow? What do you like eating?
Yeah, right.
You know, some of the simplest questions people, whānau can sort of overcomplicate.
Yeah.
And I also remember coming down to the Ngaha Aruahine whānau, and we did a cook-off that night. We did a cook, and your challenge from memory was your whānau had to make a dessert out of kumara.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And, you know, those types of challenges for whānau, you know, kumara has 1,000 dishes, yet we all prefer it in a hangi, you know.
Yes. That's right.
And, yeah, and, you know, reaching outside of the box and using our mātauranga and using our taonga, like the kumara, in more positive ways, especially around one of the desserts we used. One of the desserts had cream cheese on it.
Yeah, that was mine.
Cream cheese. I'm like, oh, is it yours?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And for me, you know, there's the maramatanga. There's the maramatanga right there. There's that enlightenment of what's possible, you know. Sometimes I think, you know, throwing vegetables in a pot and boiling it is cutting yourself short, I think.
Yeah. Oh, listen, I remember that. I actually I had an idea about that kumara dish, and one of my friends she's a chef. So I was at work. It was late in the afternoon, getting ready, and she said, "What are you up to, mate?" And I was like, "Oh, I've got to make this kumara dessert." And I told her what my idea was. I had the concept and I had the ingredients, but luckily she was actually there with me to put it all together. But it turned out yum.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
I couldn't get over it. But you're right. I mean, I love what you're saying about the kākano, because, yes, we go straight to the kai, but we do miss that step if we're not thinking about, where did you get the kai from? You know, we're starting to talk about it in regards to growing trees. You know, well, let's grow it from the seed. But you're also 100% right when people will go down to Bunnings, the warehouse, wherever they can get a kai plant, and just pop it in. And not thinking about that's the kākano aspect to all of this. That is just so important, because it's like, again, with anything, you don't get to B without starting at A. So, you know, to have that trade, well, you can't have the trade. Well, you don't get a house without wood, basically, and you don't get wood without a tree. So yeah, I just love all of that kōrero. But you know what? We have managed to cover most of our talking points, Tāne.
Oh, cool.
However, not in the sense that we thought we were gonna cover them, and it's just been a wonderful organic conversation. But I do want to touch on something else. I mean, we could go for another couple of hours, you and I think, but you know, we'll make that part 2 and 3. People will also be watching this and they'll be like, hey, we've seen him on the league field. You know, we're just taking it a little bit away from what we were before. But so, you know, we can confidently say you're a Kaitiaki on the land, and of kākano and of kai and in the bush, and you're a Kaitiaki on the field as well.
Tāna.
So, and you also talked about how you got to rekindle your hoatanga meki with Shane Cassidy from Tiger Town. So obviously, you're, you know, because I love my sport too. So yeah, you're a referee. That's what they call you these days, isn't it? Umpire, referee.
Yeah, kaiwawa. Yeah,
kaiwawa.
Kaiwawa. Yeah. So you know, when I returned from Australia, my mum was actually the operations manager at Taranaki Rugby League, and And the funny thing was when I returned from Australia, I ended up getting another job in Papua New Guinea and spent another 2 years over there. So it wasn't until 2013 that I came home. And then around that time, I just got involved through my mum. 2015, I think Māori Rugby League started.
Yep.
And then 2016, we had the New Zealand Māori Rugby League rangatahi came to Hawara that year. And so that was actually my first year refereeing, seriously. Since then, I've been to every New Zealand Māori Rugby League tournament, 16, 17, 18 with New Zealand Rugby League. And, just going back to the kaupapa of Taranaki Whānui Māori Rugby League, one thing I've really enjoyed watching our annual tournament just grow from 2015 at Rahotu to Hickford Park, Ngāti Tama in 16, 17 to Ngāruahine, 18 to Te Aorangi, 19 last year to Pukeariki. Oh no, that was Ruanui, Pukeariki 2020, and then 2021 this year down to Rauru. And when I got involved, I was actually I just lost my father in an accident, and chose to do a bit of hauora. And so around that same time, that's what I chose was rugby league refereeing. And what I actually love about refereeing is actually the connection to the rangatahi. As much as I love refereeing, my preference is by far the rangatahi. And Wahine Rugby League has come on in the last sort of 3 or 4 years. And I love refereeing Wahine because they got ears and they listen. And they're wanting to learn because they don't know the rules. With our rangatahi and our men, totally opposite. They all think they know the rules. They all been a ref before. But for me, it's really around enabling that kaitiaki-tanga for me, keeping our whānau safe on the field, and then ensuring that those players can have a safe environment to uphold their tūmataoinga on the field. And it's beautiful, Whaia. Like you start with a haka, you end with a hongi. Like honestly, I can't fathom that. Like go to tournaments all around the country and just at the secondary schools, they have our island community in Auckland, and they do waiata rather than a haka. And they also do, and this culture that comes through in league. I just feel so attached to it. It's such a beautiful kaupapa. And so one of the things I've wanted to do was actually try and strengthen the referees, our capacity here as referees in Taranaki. It's a dying sport. I love the game of league so much, I'll just keep going. Other than that, one of the other beautiful things about being kaiwawa is actually the whanaungatanga. Our referee whānau from all over the country. To be honest, it takes about 12 people to referees to run our whānui tournament. And with me being the only guy here in Taranaki, at least 10 people have to come from outside of Taranaki. And so one of the beautiful things for me is having that whanaungatanga every year. It's the best tournament I look forward to every year. It's the Taranaki tournament. Secondly, probably the rangatahi New Zealand Māori tournament, and then probably the secondaries or the youth tournament. But yeah, outside of rugby league, I don't really have much to do with other sport, apart from kai wawa, funnily enough.
I think it's awesome. I think it takes, the aspect of kaitiakitanga, like you say, from one domain to the other. And, it's great for our young people to see that too, Māori males who take up those roles, take it seriously, and with a view of kaitiakitanga, not just reffing a game, I guess, and that opportunity of the infusion of culture and the infusion of everyone's culture into I've only been 1 year deep in league. This is our first year with league.
It's all over.
Yeah.
Your life's
Well,
over.
I was like, man, they got it going on here. Really good for our kids, especially our young Māori kids, to go and see lots of people who look like them, and act like them, and there's a haka going at the drop of the hat, and all of that sort of stuff. So it's normalising, like you say.
I've got a story for you, and it's exactly what you're talking about.
I want to hear it.
In 2019, we stayed at Waiokura Marae. Our referees and Ngā Ruahine took us in, and they've been taking us in a few years now. The kazi Jeremy Bolin, Te whānau rei. So we stayed at Proko Tuko, and then the team stayed in the Wharenui. And I remember getting up that Sunday morning of the tournament, and the boys had all their jerseys on the tables, and they were still being dried out. And I remember seeing this 10-year-old, this 11-year-old just walk in. He saw the jerseys, and he was just like in awe of the jerseys. And for me, that was worth more seeing that. That was my highlight of the whole tournament, was this young kid walking into the wharekai, seeing the jerseys and just going, whoa.
Yeah.
And that was what encaptured why I love refereeing league. It was beautiful.
Māori pride, right? Māori pride, yeah. Nā reira e hoa, tēnā koe mō whakaaro i tēnei rā, me tō kōrero, me te whaiwā, ki te kōrero tahi ki ahau, o tira ki te maria e whakarongo mai nei. Nā mātou te maringa nui, me ki, kua taka mai o kōrero ki rungi i a tātou i tēnei rā. So thank you so much. I know we could have gone for a long time, but like I say, this is only part one. There's plenty of time for us to catch up again, but just thank you. And o tira ki koutou rā e whakarongo mai nei ki tēnei o ngā hōtaka o Koniahi kōrero e mihi ana ki koutou katoa. O tira ki koutou e hono mai i te iHeartRadio i te whare kōrero rānei e mihi ana ki koutou katoa. Ko mātou tēnei o te Maunga Taranaki, e tuku ngā me i ki rungi a koutou. Nā reira i te whānau, hei konei, hei kona, tūrau, Hawaii.